Armchair Generals. This is Gamer 1745. And we're going to be playing some Manor Lords here, starting just a moment, but I'm checking to make sure that we are... Okay, and YouTube should be streaming as well. And it is. And yes, Arno is first and best. So, first and best Arno. Alright, well this is good. Okay, we're going to make an episode even though we haven't been releasing episodes. Hello everyone, yes, I've been being distracted, not so much burnt out, more distracted with what we might call something like, life. Yes, life. And, so we, still love doing this and still love, playing games and hanging out with people, so that's why we're doing the live stuff. Right, okay. So, can you hear me, Arno, and are things good out there? Hope to get a reply someday. Alright, well, let's make an episode. Yes. Right. Welcome, fellow Armchair Generals. This is Gamer 1745, and we're looking at Manor Lords, and it's the early access, the beta version. It's still all early access, but this is 0.8.0.17. So this is the latest update available. Hello, Rando. How you doing? Good that it's working over on YouTube as well. So things have changed, and this is really, and we'll get to just to start, really the first look that I'm having at this latest update. Played a bunch of this going way back to the first pre-release. But one thing, let's just continue here. This is what I wanted to show off. So we have now 3 areas. We have Germanic Valley. We have High Peaks. We're not going to get into this and too deep right now. We made some other point. Winding River. That's what I wanted to show off. For that, just to let everyone know that there are now 3 maps to play with. I don't know if one of them continues to be the. I think we'll actually come up to here that this was the one to sort of start. We'll load. If one of them is still the original sort of area map or not. But this one we're going to is clearly not. We're going to be playing with today. All right. Okay, so let's pause this. So things have changed. Not all areas have all resources in them. I don't know if they all have like stone, which seems to be, well, there's stone in a lot of places on the planet, maybe not every area this size would have a suitable quarry of stone, but mostly probably where it had been, some areas had like more of one resource, I believe, than others. Now we also have a salt deposit here, which I understand is now required for preserving food to last. We have fish in a pond here, I guess, to catch. And a river, but I guess you don't fish the river? Okay. The main dev, I'm forgetting, and I follow him on Twitter, I'm forgetting his name, is a, river don't have fish in them. Yeah. It is doing actually rather good historical research on this stuff. as far as I can tell. So and he's going for a fairly high realism level, meaning virtually nothing you just like plunk down and it appears. You designate a spot, that, oh, this is going to be a storehouse, and then people go. When we started, when the starts, there's a and was a well, there's a little bit of supplies there, and there was another supply sort of dump there. But most things, you have to have them built or whatever. It isn't magical. And he's really researching this, and this area sort of comes from, with architecture and other style, from central Germany. So yeah, that really sort of informs not just what the houses look like, but maybe what people do. Now, I've taken a few courses in history, uh, including medieval, but that's very focused on England or Britain or whatever. I've also watched at least the TV series All of Time Team, which is a archaeological, and many other documentaries about um, things. Now, I just see, and I will see how this when we get to here. It says seasonal and growing shoal of fish, and obviously there's a hook there. Now, what they would do. Okay, I guess we don't build. Maybe I guess, or maybe we'll see if we build bridges or if the bridges are just predetermined. We'll see. What they would do. The things like this was more of a farm, and yes, seasonal, quite likely in the sense of, when it ices over. If in this sort of is Central Europe would ice over for winter, but they would farm the fish. What they would do is they would, and I'm just sort of going to use this as an example, is I'm not quite sure. I mean, obviously we sort of see what this river looks like, but what they would do is they'd dig out, say, this sort of area here, and have water, flowing into a pond, and they would grow the fish, specifically. It wasn't like, oh, do we catch some on a hook today? Or whatever. No, it was, a pond, and then you can just literally sort of via certain, and I mean a pond that just crammed full of fish that they're feeding them leftover scraps and whatever. So it very much was a fish farm, if you will. But we'll see how this works. Where's our town? Where's our town? So we rotated around a few times. Here, I found it. Okay, so and so fish was very much a thing. Okay, we have two people currently working the storage here, one person working the granary. We're running low on food. We have one person, our family or whatever, working the hunting camp with our wild animals there, presumably deer. And we have a logging camp with nobody at it. So what we're going to do here is actually see about reducing it down entirely. And we're going to move those two people over here so that we can get, and they're moving some of the last logs to here to construct this well so that we have water. Again, if we come over here under construction, we can do underground water overlays, and that looks like we're going to be able to have have water there. We have emmer, or what I would call wheat, fertility in our areas here and here and here. Flax. We're making clothing, which looks very poor in this area. Barley, also rather poor. Now, maybe with crop rotation, some of these might get better because different crops are set up for different residual nutrients in the ground for each other. meaning if you keep just doing wheat, you burn it out. And rye, which in this game, probably in real life, but no, I don't want to zoom out that far. There's lots of it. And so notice I've sort of kind of built our starting town a little bit away from here to be able to get to use both rye and emmer fertility a bit. Now smell, it's all green right now because we haven't been doing anything maybe like tanning leather. We'll see what works that gives bad smells. I don't know if just simply human poop will, you know, what kind of things that, and fire hazard. No, it does say work in progress, so we'll see how well this works. There's no fire hazard because we haven't built any buildings significantly, at least yet. And can you, in this update, build fences around all areas yet? I don't believe so. I do know in an earlier version, somebody in a hacky sort of way, um, a settlers camp, built a manor and then designated a large area for the walls and had a city inside of it. I presume that might still sort of kind of be done, but the dev, again, I'm forgetting his name, um, Publishers Hooded Horse, Slavic, or is it? Yeah, whatever. Slavic, whatever, the company. The dev published, hey, don't, that doesn't, yeah, you did it, but it doesn't work properly. Just wait. We'll be able to do walled towns eventually. And so I don't know that this is designed right yet for that. Okay, so these guys should be, well, hold the last log after we got the well dug. You have water supply. Now we don't have any housing yet, so we hopefully get housing done by winter so our peeps don't freeze. A little bit. Yeah, I personally could play this on, slow with lots of pauses. Just, you know, just play with details on a building thing like this. Okay. Oh, here's it. Yeah, okay, do we have one more log or something he's moving? Right. Now, we can't, it's assigned families. Here, relocate. Let's relocate this to here. That way, it needs to be built. But that way, the oxen won't have to be traveling all the way from here to go pick up this log when it's. And do we have anybody? Do we have any free? Okay, we're gonna reduce that down because we want someone to come over here and build the hitching post. And been enjoying your content and historical comments for years now. Well, great. Since the Hearts of Iron 3 days. Yes, and I will get back to that. It just, life has come up and whatnot, hit me in the face pretty hard, and busy with things. I'm moving to a different state, so I have a house there right now. My original state is California, moving to a different, and so I just, just life. So not doing as much content as I used to. Now, I was rando, talking about historical comments. I also been using the that we have. Let's pause this because I don't mind running the clock quick, but I like to when I think. Yes, I know. I don't like to be under time pressure so much when I'm trying to think like that. Let's extend this out just a little more like that. Okay. Now let the clock go. Been talking about the great change that happened because, well, at least the big catalyst was World War I in society. Collectivism versus individualism is how I framed the subtitle of this episode. And I thought that this would be a good way to talk about it because these people, now this is set in the Middle Ages. This isn't the Dark Ages, right? That's different. And I completely reject, well, most modern historians. Not that they have history facts wrong, but the way they write history, the way they talk history, the way they deal with history. There was the Dark Ages. Am I going to say it was night outside all the time? I don't believe so. I wasn't there, but I don't believe it was. And they talk about, oh, look at this Dark Age jewelry, because that's one of the things that would survive. Not that there isn't a bunch of other things out there that wasn't also nice, but just, materially, it decomposed. Something nice made out of wood, say, decomposed, and a nice jewelry thing survived. The Dark Ages were a dark age. They, it was something basically 99% of literature, published writings, not a letter to somebody else, from one person to another person, not a one-off manuscript of a diary or whatever, but a published book. 99% of like the classical era published works were lost. It's going, you weren't? No, not actually. Not that old. Old, but not that old. And so much is lost. So much of society is lost. So it's definitely a dark age. Now, when the Dark Ages were the Dark Age was going on, Byzantium was still there. Okay. But even then, even with Byzantium, which is sort of New Rome or Eastern Rome, they thought of themselves as Romans, Greek-speaking Romans, but still, we lose so much of literature, so much stuff. Well, basically, I consider the Dark Ages as an apocalypse, in essence. Okay, it wasn't a big meteorite hitting Earth, a dinosaur-killing meteorite. But there were plagues. There were, let's pause this. There were wars and famines and all kinds of stuff. So I consider it an apocalypse happened. And yes, Byzantium is a Okay, advanced pawn keeping doubles the maximum capacity of all shoal of fish in the region. Okay, well, we don't have any pawns in this region. And if this is still working as it was when I was last playing it, each region is going to have its own sort of tech tree. And it's, I guess, not so much of a tech tree in a civilization game in that we've discovered how to make honey. No, it's just more of a specializing idea that that these people, get or develop a craft person, a craftsman who can, beekeep well and at scale, or who can do trapping, um, or other um, skills, uh, heavy plow, orchardry. Okay, I think we're going to go for forest management so we get wild berries. That which we haven't, but I think we shall now. Okay. I'm planning on continuing to talk philosophy here, but also play the game. I'm trying to balance this out relatively well. Right to this crossroads, and we're going to go like that. I'm an American, so we like straight roads with intersections. And that's a forester's hut. We were going to want one over here eventually to no, I guess that's close enough. To try to maintain the forest to keep getting more logs. And we're also going to need to do harvest wood for fires as well as now here's an interesting thing. We'll get back to the philosophy here. Yeah, we have Woodcutter's Lodge, which gives us firewood. Okay, good. We have Logging Camp, which gives us wood. To build buildings with. Why aren't they the same thing? I'm serious. Is this a game limitation now? Yeah, we have a charcoal kiln here, and I do know making charcoal was a job. But these people here are cutting down trees. They don't throw away the firewood. Okay, this is okay. Again, I think the developer is really looking at historical stuff in the region that he is, I think, from and building this game setting in. Another thing that I've done in the past is not just studied history, I've done living history. I know that there's a modern term which was not around when I was doing it, of cosplay, coming out of Japan. I mean, maybe it was around in Japan, but not in the Western lexicon. But, costume play. Well, yeah, obviously we've been doing this in the West, with Halloween, and not just dressing up as spooky things, but dressing up as a cowboy and an Indian and whatever, all kinds of things, costume play. But there's two other, and they blend, but two other things that you do is dress up. One is reenactment. and it is a sort of an element of living history, but you dress up normally as in a military uniform, get weapons, either original weapons or replica weapons from the period, and reenact battles. And that's, and it and that is normally limited. Yeah, you may camp out at the event in a tent that's like the period or whatever, but you're sort of reenacting the battles. The other is living history, which, like I say, these sort of blend. But living history would be, and there are places around that are like this in the modern day, that people actually try to farm, actually try to live in a period sort of way, whether just 9 to 5 during the job or 24/7. Now, they often have tourists that come to the venue too. And what the people that are doing living history are doing, there's a term called experimental archaeology. And I've known some very, very in-depth experimental archaeologists. And have kind of been part of a living history group that worked along with them. Um, so I know something about some of this stuff from the 18th century. I was expecting to see coming in here a wattle fence, which um, I'm not sure. These are definitely daub um, buildings here, at least at this end. Don't know why. Again, I'm not saying they're not correct. I don't. I maybe just the. I guess this is an aesthetic thing, meaning good looking. That here's the front of the house, it's been daubed, and the back of the house, like, who the fuck cares? But wouldn't that let in? Okay, so this is obviously planking. Um, Wattle is tree branches, and we're getting to the fire thing in here. I hope this is entertaining, though there's very few people watching. Um, there are a few, but so you would take branches. Some would be vertical, and then you would sort of weave layer after layer after layer of branches up here, and then you would cover it with daub, which would be a mud and cow poop generally, or whatever, mixture that you would put on it to, make a plaster, and then eventually maybe paint it. And even over wood like this, just as a sealant, you would, and as well as a protecting of the wood too, potentially, because that would be a lot thinner than the big thick posts for installation. So you would often do, tree branches for fencing this way. So, but these people again, so when you get a log like this, they've had branches and they've had other things all cut off from them and chunked up. So I don't know if it's just a game mechanic that woodcutter is different than logger. Um, sort of, kind of thinking should be doing the same thing. But all right, so now, they're building that, so we'll let that continue to build. Okay, back to individualism versus collectivism. I hope these terms aren't lost on you as to, what we're talking about here. In the, Dark Ages, Middle Ages, you have, I take this as a post-apocalyptic world and I'm looking primarily at the West, at the West or Europe. And so you have and it varies. And if you want to get technical, only some of it is feudal, or the feudal system. But even when it's not the feudal system, it will look like the feudal system to modern people. And that, to some degree, is a collective setting. It is not an individualism idea. So is human society, however big of a society you want to look at, could be planet-wide, could be a small, isolated, I don't know if you want to go town, but a small, isolated, I don't know, I think in American term we say settlement, but small, isolated group of houses somewhere. Outside of a few mountain men, again, another sort of American thing, people live in a community. Hello, what is that? Red Neos 2? Am I getting that right? I hope. So we live in a community. The left, well, sometimes the right, it depends on who you are, but the left views everything as a collective. You didn't build that. The community did, is the way that they look at things. They look at things as you have, at best, and this is, I'm talking about the left, at best, minimum ownership rights. You don't have, do we want to plant carrots here for 15? How much money do we have? We don't have much. But, personal, but community money here. Regional wealth. Okay, I think we will do a vegetable garden there, because that may very well come and help us out. That's one reason we did these so long, as well as to sort of demonstrate what we're talking about here. Okay, forager's hut. Good. Now that we have that built, we're going to still use our labor here, and let's come here. And build that. All right, yes, we're playing on the river map. This is my first time playing on the river map. I played a bunch of earlier versions pre this beta. This is the beta new out version that we're playing on. So I'm learning new things about fishing and salt that I haven't played with prior. So like I say, the left is collectivist. The left wants to redistribute things, wants to think that most things don't belong to you; they belong to the community. Then, depending on what political spectrum we're talking about and when we're looking at this, in some ways it can be on the left. But then you have ANCAPs, anarcho-communist, or not communist, anarcho-capitalists. That's sort of an extreme. And, not just, near anarchism, not quite anarchism, but near anarchistic, and everything is capitalistic, individualism at its height. Well, and that's the way things should be. And any collective endeavors, I like this, yeah, and caps, yeah. Any collective endeavors should only be done with the carrot, not the stick. Meaning, hey, dude here, Thomas, you want to come and be an aerospace engineer and build a space shuttle? We'll give you money to come and do that. Obviously, this guy here doesn't understand about flight, let alone space shuttles or something. Not like in the Soviet Union or something. Hey, Thomas, you scored really well on a test. We're going to send you to special school over here. Oh, but you want to be an artist? No. You're going into this this school for aerospace engineers, or depending on what level of education you are. You're going into this program, and you're going to build, aircraft and, or design and do stuff in aircraft and space industry and whatever, because society says you're going to do it because you have the natural talents to do it, whether you have the desire. Yeah, nice rain effect. Oh, the graphics are great, and the graphics compared to some of the earlier versions of the game are using a lot less resources, from the computer resources, processing power. So yeah, no, they're doing great. Can you fish out of the river? I don't know. I've not gotten there. I know you can fish out of the ponds. I'm sort of kind of guessing no, but I don't know. I will investigate that at some point, but I don't know. When we get there, when I get to expanding out enough and whatever, and have somebody to maybe try to see if I can. Let me even look right now. I don't know if we can tell. Here. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. We could build here. Well, I'm not going to waste the thing here because I think it's probably too early. Trees, uprooted construction. Where do it near a pond here. Well, it's in a different region, that's why it's not like me, but yeah. If you can't fish from the river, that would be stupid. Yeah, we were just talking about that a little while ago before you got here. This should be more of a fish farm, meaning you're feeding the fish, and whether you're using a pole or you're using a net, or which they would often do, use fish traps and trap and take out, manage the fish levels, and harvest them that way, and not so much, did I catch anything today? Is it a good day fishing? No, it's you're scaring them into an area or whatever that's set up with fish traps, and you're taking out the ones you want to process, whether to salt down and save for later, or sell today, eat and sell today, or whatever the thing is, as you're working with the thing. I wonder if the river will freeze in the winter and you can march across it. We will see. That'll be interesting. Depends on when this is set. This now, okay, everybody, remember. We'll get to some of the other topics here. Climate change. I'm a historian. I know about climate change. We've known about climate change for a long time. It's all these modern leftists that are just finding out about climate change. Oh my God, climate's changing, and it must be humans. Oh my God, humans. We must get rid of humans or industry because climate change. Historians have known about climate change for a long time. Well, we don't know too much about climates in the southern hemisphere, meaning south of the equator. There's very few people live south of the equator. There's people living on the equator, particularly I'm thinking of Indonesia. But there's very few people living south of it. Because the equator goes through Brazil and the Belgian, or the Congo. So the southern, I don't know, third or half, I gotta have to look, of Brazil, Argentina, and Chile and whatnot. Those are, and there was civilizations, the Inca and pre groups down there on the sort of Chilean coast down there. But we don't really have good records there from those people. And then we have sub-equatorial Africa, meaning Africa south of the equator, and we have very little to basically no written records there. Yeah, the Great Zimbabwe, they built some stuff out of stone. True. But it's not much more than that. And the Aboriginal people living out in Australia, so it is difficult to determine the climate there. Hey, Toy Jet, good to have you there. Nigeria is north of the equator. Because it's down in the Congo is where it goes through. Hello, Shepherd Durrell. How you doing? Well, very good. Thanks for subscribing. Are you... okay, well, I don't know, Shepherd. We'll see. I'm only semi-active on the channel right now. So probably not going to do much changing anyways at this moment. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of Southern Hemisphere records. So Northern Hemisphere, where we do have records. And then we know, or at least we think we know, that millions of years ago, back during the dinosaurs era, not just megafauna, saber-toothed cats and woolly mammoths, but way, way back, the Earth was a lot hotter than it is today. That's at least the belief. I don't know if we know, or we just think we know. I don't know. But during the classical era, and by that I'm meaning sort of Greece and Rome, Rome sort of comes, Rome comes, there's a city there or whatever, but, Rome, the Republic, growing up wasn't around yet, so during the Peloponnesian Wars and later during, Alexander the Great and the Diadochi onwards of I've been thinking about this, so some of the names are going to quickly escape me. The Hellenistic period, basically the Hellenistic period, which is post-Alexander, and then the Roman period coming, the Republic and the Empire and all that. During the classical period, the Mediterranean was a bit different. Yes, Egypt was a grain basket for the world, but also what is Carthage or modern-day Tunisia was also a large producer of grain. Not just sort of a marginal producer, a large producer. And it was warmer then. I think warmer than it is today. Then we have, as we mentioned earlier, the Dark Ages. And things get colder during the Dark Ages in Europe. It gets physically colder. And then we have the Middle Ages warm period. The environment warms up in Europe. And again, I know this more focused on Europe, not sure quite what is happening in the Americas or happening out in China, but in Europe, things are getting warmer. And then and the Renaissance comes, which is happening. We can talk many reasons why the Renaissance is happening, but it's happening, and it gets colder. Now, one of the things that we can see about getting colder in Europe um, is Scottish men living up in Scotland and northern Britain, or north of England, but on the British Isles, start wrapping blankets around themselves when they're going out of the home during non-winter periods. That develops into what we today see as the modern kilt. So, and that really starts happening during the Renaissance. Earlier on, they're not doing that. So it gets cold enough that they start wrapping blankets around themselves. And it gets cold. It gets so cold, we were mentioning, does this river freeze over in winter and can you march across it? Well, the Thames River, the river that goes through London, down at London, where it is actually tidal, meaning with the sea, it raises and lowers with the tides, but it would actually freeze over, and it would freeze over so much that they had frost fair in which they would build, we'll call them permanent structures, permanent for the ice, meaning buildings on the ice, and thousands of people a day would be walking on the Thames River on this for this frost fair during the winter to buy and sell things. So we're talking shacks. We're not talking structures like this with stone foundations and whatnot, but shacks and whatnot were built out on the ice, and thousands of people were walking on it. And I think the last frost fair was like right around 1805 or something. Okay, well that's okay. There is sort of an industrial revolution going on in Britain, but that ain't much of one. Okay, there, get some food stored up. I know we're not using firewood, I don't think, but we do need to start cutting that soon. Didn't Venice freeze during the Great Frost during times as well? I don't know. I mean, it very well could have. Now, the reason Venice is sort of where it is to use the water as a defense. So I don't know if that would work in the winter. I mean, it may have. I again, my historical studies focus much more on Britain, and always I use my language very carefully. So when I say Britain, I can mean the Isle of Britain, or I can say England, which means just England. It's not the whole island. So yeah, I don't know about and is freezing over to the point that it's solid, not just hey, there's a bit of ice on the water. Now, also do realize the Venice Lagoon is salt water, and salt water needs more to freeze. So I don't know. I'm just speculating here, knowing that it is salt water, and knowing it probably takes a bit more. So probably not so much, but it being in the Adriatic. Now up in the Baltic, hell yeah, that's freezing over solid, 20, 30 feet thick. At least during the 20 or 30 feet thick, people, not, that's 10 meters kind of solid, during the 18th century, Peter the Great's time and whatnot. So we've known about this climate change and the Industrial Revolution is just starting in the literally around 1800, in the 18th century, but it's not enough to be doing climate change, enough to, change the regional climate. So getting warmer. So I personally believe, and I don't know why, because, whether it's a change in the the Gulf Stream, that comes out of, comes up across America and then over to Scotland and Norway and whatnot. Does that shut down or change or something that the change? Yeah, I don't know why the climate is changing. Whether it's not necessarily more solar flares, but just maybe more solar radiation activity. Maybe the sun sometimes burns just a little hotter, a little colder, a little hotter, and a flickering thing, but that flickering is hundreds of years, just minor changes for something like the sun as percentage. I don't have the answer as to what is causing climate change. I just don't believe. Now, local change, because I've said, sometimes concreting over an area is going to make that area hotter, and so I'm not saying that some specific region isn't, local temperatures aren't changing because of human activity, but global or hemispheric changes. And we did mention the Dark Ages. There is a thought that during part of the Dark Ages, things were briefly dark. Hello, Blast Pop. Little Ice Age, yes, that's sort of coming into Renaissance, at least one of them. And during the Dark Ages, and whether it was like maybe a comet strike somewhere on the planet, or whether it was a volcano that happened that put a lot of dust up in the stratosphere, that not like it made it like night in the middle of the day, but just sort of made it a little darker. And I don't know that I'm solid on that that information, that could contribute to a climate change. So I am very, 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 as you can probably tell, skeptical that humanity is causing this climate change. And I'm also thinking it's good, because things were better during the warmer periods for humanity. And since most of humanity lives in the northern hemisphere, it is better. And it means, yes, the polar ice caps retreat in the north. Because if you actually look, and I recently found another infographic on the changes since the 1970s to the 2010s or whatever, of Antarctica's growing ice cap. So this very well may be just switching between northern and southern hemispheres, as which is colder and warmer. So we're not necessarily going to see significant sea rise. It just the ice cap may be more in the south than in the north. But I don't think the northern ice cap is going to disappear. Oh, and another bit of information. Greenland was green. They're finding now that the ice is retreating under where there is zero soil, meaning just rocks. They're finding, rock walls and other things of what had been clearly farms. So during the Middle Ages, when the Vikings were out there, and the reason that probably the Vikings left was because of climate change getting so much colder, they could no longer farm on Greenland. Not that the whole place was tropical, lush trees or anything, but there was farming going on in areas that are only, since like the 70s, that the ice has retreated, and they found these, rock-walled farm buildings and rock-walled, farm enclosures and whatnot. So, so I'm not denying somebody's reading of a thermometer right now, or somebody's calculating right now of rainfall, and it's saying that that's not happening. I'm just thinking it's not going to go to catastrophic levels. At least I don't believe it will, and I don't think humanity is significantly. I mean, it may be marginally, on the margins, but significantly responsible for the change. But that is mine. And what's Blast Pop saying? We are still in an ice age by definition. We can still ice age. The caps have ice. Yeah, I don't know that has, at least in human civilization, last 5,000-6,000 years, that's gone away. We really don't have long-term points. Yeah. And as so I actually think if it just goes to what would be something like the Middle Age warm period, which is not as warm as we think it was then. I mean, they didn't have, mercury thermometers, but they did, without greenhouses, grow good grapes in northern England for wine that the French were complaining about competition from northern England. Grapes don't effectively grow in northern England outside of hothouses. So I think it was warmer still in the Middle Ages as well as the classical period in there. So yeah, I'm not worried about. I'm not saying it isn't going to be catastrophic for some marginal island out in the middle of the Indian Ocean that's only 3 feet above surface level now. That if the oceans rise another 12 inches or something, that I know I did say it's 3 feet, but now you've only got 2 feet, and storms and whatnot make it so that it's untenable and gets overwashed with water too easy or something like that. So I'm not saying it won't be bad for some people, but I think overall for humanity it'll be a good thing. At least that's my interpretation of things. Okay. Since we're done building most of these houses, we're going to put person back on granary duty to hopefully go get that. We have somebody out here doing some harvesting here. So yeah. So we have an apocalypse. Humans cannot survive either as an literal individual or as a nuclear type family, which could be multiple generations. Could in theory, be grandparents and parents, so 2 generations that are adults, and then children. And this could be, brothers and sisters. So I mean, this could be 20 or 30 people, but even that really cannot survive on their own. It cannot. This is what they sort of talk about in people, the Pacific Islanders going out there. That had to be a colonization effort once they identified a location of an island. It wasn't just 2 or 3 people showing up, or 6 people showing up, 3 men, 3 women, and being able to survive there. No, it takes more people to survive. And you go, oh well, mountain man dude who went back in the 1800s, or mountain man dude yeah, but no, because mountain man dude has iron in him. So somebody, not mountain man dude, but somebody has gone out and dug iron out of the ground, refined it, which creating a blast furnace to to get the purities out, get it to refined metal. And then, even if, we're talking here, even if it's still just iron, not in a steel capacity yet, becoming having somebody who's a blacksmith. You're not gonna, in a practical sense, while also hunting your own food, while doing all your other things you need to do to survive, you're not going to be able to do that on your own. So a person can get a bunch of survival doohickeys, we'll call them, a knife, an axe, a musket, lead balls, somebody making gunpowder that he goes periodically and gets, and so you can get a bunch of supplies from town or whatever, and then maybe be able to go out there for a long time on your own and survive until you have to come back and get more gunpowder. If we're talking at 1800s, somebody hunting and fishing and whatnot for themselves and having a musket or a rifle or whatever. So people cannot live on their own. So the left, again, they see this as, yes, you can't live on your own. So it is a collective, and everything is owned by the community. That's how they see this. Hey, Sev82, how you doing? we are founding our our township here. We've yet to even build a manor house, but we're trying to attract people here to fill these houses. We've not yet established a market or anything. I'm just trying to get people in here, and we can see that these guys have water access and they don't have food stall supplies, but there are some granary supplies, so hopefully people won't starve. So, they feel it appropriate or good to manage what they see the left sees, whoever they are, the people in charge, as excess, whatever that may be, and it can change. Is it somebody who has $1 million, or is it somebody who makes $1 million a year? Or is it somebody who has property worth $1 million? Like this guy, property may be worth $1 million, but he just may have $10,000 in the bank, and the rest is just owning this property. It's worth $1 million. You can't do anything with it unless you sell it. But does he have to pay taxes like $250,000 a year that he doesn't freaking have? So he has to sell off his excess land. Because I don't know. Maybe if this was over here, it'd be riverfront property, and people want the view, and it was worth $1 million. Beseech thee for bread. Well, we still have some bread left over from our founding. We're getting meat coming, spoilage low, and spoilage low berries. We're sort of on a survival tack now. We're trying to get somebody over here to cut firewood for the coming winter. We'll get to farming and whatnot here. Sheep raising in time. So, like I say, they believe that they can. It's not even that they can justify taking it. It's you have to justify, in essence, your you're having more than somebody else, if you will. Justify why you might have meat and berries instead of just meat. Why do you so you have to justify why you have, and so they get to, whether it's in the sense of redistribution, taking from one and giving to another, or it could be, well, hey, you've planted enough carrots, and sort of what I'm currently doing here is telling somebody by clicking on this, you will be working in the logging camp. Now, when you're a manor lord, you can of course be one of the peasants. Okay, here's what we can do here. We can play one of the YouTube. Let's see if we can here. Can I? Oh, let me. Maybe it's coming over here. Somewhere, people here. Yes. Enders is going to become, and it's a good technique, to get people emotionally. Oh, it's not staying here. What? People. Okay, Sev. I clicked on something else. 82 is to name people after viewers. There we go. So you're gathering berries right now, Sev. Okay, well, we'll go to a different house here. Oh, I know that this. Okay, he's working transporting. Herman is going to become. We're going to have to capitalize your name. And Arno as well. Okay, Red Neos 2. You get a household, and Arno over here. People getting resources. Thomas is going to become Arno. So you guys are here now. So yeah. Now when you're in an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic situation, you know, when now here in this game, and we're in one of the modes, there are bandits out here. But whether they're bandits or brigands, or whether it's another town over here with another lord who's going to get his people and come and take everything you own, they weren't, well, maybe sort of enslaving. I mean, peasants weren't slaves. It's much, much more complicated than that. So there is, and we haven't built it here yet, but there very much is. And let's actually stop that. We got these guys cutting firewood. We've got them getting berries and that. Yeah, wood and still don't know what these things. I don't really see the tools getting used. Maybe they have started and I just haven't noticed yet. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to build a forester's hut. Usually, build a little bit of road here. You see the hill sloping down, so we're going to build it right like that. And we're going to build the forester's hut right here. So they'll come and replace his tools, have a use now when you build some structures. Okay, good to know. No, Red Neos. So, in the Middle Ages, you definitely have people, whether they concern themselves with justifications or not, will come and take everything you have and very well may kill you if you don't defend yourself. So a community must organize to defend itself. And these people don't have drones and aerospace and tanks and things like that. They've got to, and we haven't yet formed one here, but they've got to have their own militias. They've got to have somebody telling them what they can do. So it's a collective thing. So the left is correct that humanity, or M4s, yes. Can I volunteer for the glorious militia on top of my berry picking work? Yes, you can. So what we have are 20 spears and 20 shields. So militia unit here. Before, when I was playing this, all the mercenary units would eventually go away, and I don't know if it was the other guy hiring them away and we weren't able to get them. So let's create a militia unit. Okay, so now we've done that. So now we have 10 members of the militia unit. Out of possible 36, we have only 20 spears and shields, but we now have that. The Baron buys all of them. Okay. And that's to me a problem. Hey, Beam Sam. Oh, sure, I'm interested in all kinds of things. How long before the AK-47? Yes. As far as I know, the other Baron will buy them all, so you got to be fast if you want some. Well, I mean, you got to be generating a lot of money to sit around and keep these things going, paying, I don't know. And I suspected that it might be something like the Baron taking them all, but I don't know if I'm doing the one with the Baron. I don't think so. I just think we've got to take these things. Or maybe there is the Baron. I don't know. Okay. Now, maybe you want to argue. You got to win, of course. Attacking bandit sites gives decent coins. Yes. And when we will move on the bandits, brigands once I think we have easy victories, because I don't want to lose a lot of my peasants being, Pyrrhic victories. Yay, we won, but we took half, casualties or something like that. I don't want that to happen. Do we? Yes, we have a family that should be unassigned that's working on constructing this. And so, if you want to argue from, and I don't know that I'm the best person. Has the Baron grabbed any spaces? Doesn't. Oh, here maybe is no. No, I don't think so. I don't think he's grabbed anything yet. I'm not even sure if I'm playing the right scenario for the Baron. I don't know. There's still the three sort of, one is just city building. One I think I got the one that was just gonna get rid of, gonna conquer all the different areas, but without a Baron competing, just bandits or whatever. I don't know. I mean, do people realize to some degree this is me just looking at new mechanics in the game and using this as a way to talk about society, and sort of I've boiled it down to individualism versus collectivism. And so if you want to sort of take an ANCAP view of things and go, this is terrible. Yes, they needed to do it because bad guys from the next village, the Baron, whoever, will come over the hill, maybe riding horses, and come and steal everything you have. So, yeah, it was a very, very unfortunate necessity for having somebody, in chainmail and armor, sitting on a horse, telling people what to do. But we're beyond that now, aren't we? And look, capitalism and freedom and whatnot, and hockey stick go up of human productivity since this has happened. And they're abso-freaking-lutely right on that part for sure. And that's the best way to do this. Whether if we really go to some ANCAP level of government and society or not, or just, part way down this road, that's going to be great and it's going to be wonderful. And, we just keep the, you keep monopolies from being, happening that would, whether they're government monopolies or whether they're individual monopolies, that somehow, that would end up killing your, because you got to realize within capitalism, and this is what you gotta look at, it has the seeds of its own destruction. And that if we're looking at whether more detailed versions of capitalism, but just the basic capitalism of Adam Smith, You've got to have a market with multiple players in the market, meaning you can't have, the market can't be berry producer. If you want berries, you get it here. You've got to have multiple berry producers so that, well, what is his price? Oh, his price is, 1 penny a berry. What's this other guy's price? 2 pennies a berry. Well, where are we going to go get berries? At 1 penny a berry. But if there's only one berry producer, now he can't charge $1 million a berry because none of these people are going to be able to have, buy berries. So he's going to have to charge something that people could still buy berries, but he can charge the maximum amount for the berries because he has no competition. The maximum amount, you can say, well, that's what the market will bear. Well, but it's not a market because he's the sole berry producer. And obviously, right now it is. But if this was a larger town and we had 3 of these guys out there, and each of these foragers' huts were their own seller and producer of berries, they could compete with each other. So within the idea of market capitalism, you need to have markets and competing. You cannot have single sole source providers and call it a market. As well, and you can't have also single sole source customers. Like in America, for ships, there's virtually one customer nowadays, and that is the United States Navy. The U.S., because of various reasons, and whether we get to that in this series or not, but all of ship producing has moved out of the U.S. except for ships that are specifically designed to go between U.S. ports. Like, because you have to be both U.S. manned, owned, as well as built for ships to, say, go from the mainland of the USA to Hawaii, or to go from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Any 2 ports within the U.S. Now, you can go to and from the U.S., from a foreign port. But so technically, you could leave from San Francisco, go up to Canada, Montreal, no, not Vancouver up there, Vancouver, and then back down to L.A. or something. You can sort of, stop by somewhere else and then come back. But yeah, so the point is, I don't know why these are down. I guess they're slowly chopping them up or something. So basically, it's become sole customers the United States Navy. So for capitalism to function, you need a market on both ends, both from a supplier as well as a customer. What does Beamstuff say? In the Middle Ages, market was an actual place, not an abstract. Life was simpler then. Well, yeah, and we still have markets today. We still have farmers markets around and whatnot, absolutely. But it needs to be the idea that for it to function as a competitive market, it needs to have multiple egg producers, multiple carrot producers, multiple whatever. Now, so with and that is very, very good. But we are not a global society that is at peace with itself. I'm sorry, people would like that, but it is just not the fact. History has shown, and history is not over. I know people thought it, and there's books, The End of History, written, I forget who, after the end of the Cold War. But history, oh, sure, they knew that there was going to be, some crazy dictator in some jungle or desert. But history was over. Major conflicts were over. If two nations were going to have conflicts, they were going to negotiate it out. And if they couldn't quite do it, they would go to some other organization, whether it's a third country or the UN or whoever, and organize it out. Now we have Russia invading Ukraine. History ain't over, guys. Somebody's going to decide one day to invade Poland. I don't know if it's going to be Germany, if it's going to be Ukraine, if it's going to be Russia, if it's going to be the United States. Somebody's going to invade Poland someday again. Poland's going to be invaded someday again. Now, it might not be within my lifetime. Well, Steel Yoda, why don't... This is the dumbest game coverage I've ever seen. Sorry. I'm playing the game here. We're letting this go. And I mean, sure, we could go a little bit faster, but yep. So, man, I guess this is not for you. So history isn't over. So the idea that there isn't a collective responsibility that we can just like, oh, hey, it doesn't matter if all the ship producing is going outside of the U.S. Because, hey, the market will provide. And the U.S., hey, look, if it doesn't, if it can't find good shipbuilders at home, it could just have its ships, military ships built in Japan. No problem. And, oh, hey, if the Marshall Islands is going to have cheaper taxes on shipping and less regulation on, the ships themselves, that's no problem. You don't have to have any ships owned by, flying an American flag. No problem. And we're finding out that isn't the case. This ANCAP global idea humanity isn't there yet. Without much effort, I mean, think about Putin just decides to invade Poland, and the Russian people and army go along with it. Now, the U.S. might invade Panama again, and there's reasons for it over the canal, and there is more than a little evidence that China has become a big investor in the Panama Canal. And you go, well, so what? Well, so what? Well, if anything was going to go crazy, or if China was overly influencing the Panamanian government, well, then the U.S., could just militarily go in and deal with it. Well, that's what we're talking about doing. Because China is, and I don't have the details, so I'm, talking out of my ass here, I'll readily admit, that okay, we've got 7 months, 8 months of fuel, so I'm going to shut this down. So I am playing this game, not just talking. Granary, we also have lots of that. Okay, and let's move somebody here so they go and pick up the wood from there. So and the U.S., just to give you church building time, we're getting there. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I was thinking, actually, what I think I'm going to do. I mean, new church building time is coming. What I was thinking of doing here is, well, that's way too big. You don't want too big of a market, I've found, at least with the last game, or last version of this game. But let's create a market there. Let people sort of set up a market. But then, yeah, church building. But I think we're going to need stone for that. Okay, church. Yeah, oh, all calculation, you need wood planks. We do have enough stone. And there is provisions within our treaty giving the canal to Panama um, that I don't know exactly how it's phrased, but if things are not run appropriately or whatever, the U.S. can take it back as part of the giving it to Panama, the treaty for the canal. And just to give you the history, if you don't know, there was this country. There was this country called Colombia, and it had the isthmus there. And Colombia still exists, obviously, yes. But to get up to where Panama is, it was very few people actually living there, and you had to take a ship. Even though there's a land connection that's really jungly there still is no permanent road to this day. I think part of that is strategic, but part of that is also very, very difficult to build the road. So, there, saw pit. Okay, we're going to put this saw pit next to here, so they can come and get the wood from there, quick and easy. Need more families for construction work. Okay, well, we have these guys out here doing that. We have that. Oh, I guess we're gonna. I know they have been planning something, but we're gonna get that so that we can get this. I was hoping. I think these guys are empty still out here. I was hoping to get more people. Yep, no family. No family. It looks like. I guess. Yeah, no family. So we have empty residences here. And so the U.S. show up, and there's contracts with the French guy who I think was partially responsible for the Suez Canal and some other stuff that wasn't working right and whatever. So the U.S. shows up and creates Panama. Shows up with a ship, gets local rebels to like rebel and form a country. So the U.S. basically creates Panama, for the better or for the worst of it. But Colombia wasn't, wanting to give good contracts for setting the canal. So the U.S. creates Panama. Carter, in my opinion, very sillily gives the canal away for stupid reasons. Ideological reasons, not practical reasons. And he also thinks that it'll make, I'm sure it's both ideological as well as trying to justify it. Well, Latin America thinks that we interfere too much with them. Well, okay, we can talk about that. And they'll feel better if we give Panama Canal back to Panama. Well, never what? Give it back? There were 38,000 Americans died digging that canal. 38,000 Americans, U.S. citizens, not people of the Americas. 38,000, mostly to malaria, but they died to it. Which, can you still walk around your town? I don't know if you can do that without visit mode. Okay, yes, we can. I didn't know if I had to have the no, what's the okay, WASD. I didn't know if we had to have the manor built yet or not. They made rebels rise against Grand Colombia to build a canal. Yeah, something like that. There was already, I think, some people that were not terribly pleased and whatnot. And they sort of did that, and they put, because you had to take a boat, a ship, whatever, to get to Panama from Colombia, a U.S. ship sitting or two off the coast was enough to keep Colombia from being able to stop this. So the U.S. creates Panama. So, yeah, and within our agreement to give Panama back to, the give canal back to Panama, Well, like I say, there are stipulations going forward, meaning like if it's badly run, if it's not easily accessible for the U.S. and U.S. merchant fleets, meaning if you can't charge extra money for the U.S. or whatever. So and the U.S. is either the U.S. directly or really because again we were talking about shipping. Most shipping is not owned by the U.S. anymore. It's Europeans and Asians own most of the actual ships. But most of the shipping that goes through the canal um, is going to or from the United States. Okay, so it's most of it isn't going from say Asia to Europe. Might do something like that in a World War III sense, wanting to avoid the Indian Ocean if stuff explodes there or whatever. But right now it doesn't. And of course, it was partially built as a strategic asset for the American Navy and whatnot. So there is, in my opinion, justification. And of course, yeah, we might invade Panama and people die there. Now we could, of course, invade and no one fights us. I mean, there's some deer. It's sort of like my place. I got deer walking around my barn area. Um, mhm. Now these are all male deer. They all have horns. We'll walk back towards town. So yeah, so it won't be hard for the U.S. and the U.S. Could show up and it could be a bloodless invasion and just sort of reclaim the canal zone and sign a treaty with the current Panamanian government that acknowledges now it's back under U.S. sovereign territory and control, and will collect the fees and manage it. And still, even before when it was under U.S. sovereign control, they still hired a lot of Panamanians working down there. So it would still be it wouldn't be as economic a boon for Panama as it currently is, but I mean they wouldn't get so much tax money, but whatever. So, but it didn't take a lot for Putin to get Russia to invade Ukraine. And yeah, we can talk about historical justifications and strategic ones, but it didn't take a lot. It didn't take 20 years of haranguing speeches. It just sort of like orders and they went. And since I think by any measure, the invasion of Ukraine was a failure, meaning they were going to, install a new government and conquer, well, whether annex or install a puppet regime for the bulk of Ukraine. I'm not sure which it was going to be or would have been or whatever, but yeah, obviously it didn't work out that way. But they're still fighting. So the idea that it would be super hard to get a bunch of Germans in the German army to invade Poland, I think is ridiculous. Now, I think the intellectual leadership, both in government and just in intelligentsia, in universities and publications, think it is. They thought that you're stuck on a cow. This is what happens. Now we can walk through it. He can't. So until this cow moves, this person isn't going to be productive in society. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay. Well, it's a good thing to walk around. Thanks, Arno. All right. Well, I've run into these kind of things going way back to the very first public beta. Okay, let's click on this. Yes, let's click on this. Let's move it here. Hopefully that'll get this somebody. Okay, unassigned family will come, build a new hitching post, and then move the cow over there. Okay, it's not a cow, it's a bullock. But yeah. Can you walk into a backyard? Yes, I can walk into a backyard. We'll see the carrots growing over here. And just, so the intelligentsia, let's see, they're building the hitching post. The intelligentsia thought that if we interconnect the economies enough in the world, that'll keep wars from happening. That was one of the major reasons for Clinton to allow China to become such an industrial powerhouse. And it's not allow as in we wouldn't bomb them or we gave them permission slip to do it, but just simply allowing trade to happen with China instead of isolating them. It's what they thought, and though we've more or less kept it from happening, thought, well, if we just now start trading with Cuba, Cuba will open up. No. And the communism will fall. Okay, see he's now moving. Let's go walk over there and see if the dude is now walking and being productive. Hey, Thomas K. I'll read a bit there. And so, okay, that's the guy. I'm pretty sure that was the guy stuck on the bullock. Yep, he's off there. Let's see what. I think the West is built on moral values to some significant extent. Abandoning those values will potentially tear the West apart and create an institution of everyone for themselves again. Very well may be, but the reality, reality is hitting ideology in the face right now, I would say. So reality is important. If you have, and again, everybody who may be showing up, I'm sort of examining while using this game, and we are going to continue to play it, don't worry. Let's speed it back up a bit. Is individualism versus collectivism. So, we cannot, have a single source supplier for things. Meaning, if I shouldn't use the word if we allowed, we don't need arms. Arms are for violence. We don't need that. Well, maybe a little bit, but we don't need that. So let's, peace now. Shut down warmongering companies that profit off of war. And if the West shut down that, because we have a value of moral values, war bad war, no, bad peace. I think they're evil. The pacifists, the person who is not willing to fight in wars. Pacifists are evil. I'll get into explaining that someday, but they are evil. War bad, evil. Okay. And the last armaments producer was Russia. And moral values be damned. Russia's coming, or China's coming, or Saudi Arabia, or whoever's coming. And they've got arms and they've got people. Oh, I'm not saying you're a pacifist. Never said you were. I just hate pacifists. People. Now, I can understand people not wanting to fight in a particular war. That's different. I mean, there is obviously something very different between, hey, there's a war, let's everybody go fight in it, versus no matter what they're doing, the Nazis are back, we're going to put you all into extermination camps. And the person going, I'm going to just be a pacifist and they'll let me live. No, pacifist, that's, because that to me, being a pacifist and allowing the Nazis to happen, is just immoral. We had bandits steal some of our berries. Looks like we'll have enough though. But so pacifism. So I get, and when you're dealing with people who share similar values, now obviously there'll always be the immoral crooks, whether they'll stab you and take your stuff or pretend to be you, identity theft and take your stuff. So there'll always be, well, if you're a pacifist hippie, I know hippies that are hippy dippy but are not pacifists. Now, some of them are just misguided, and if I can explain to them why they're misguided, well, then fine. But it's the unwillingness. Oh, we need to do that. It's the unwillingness to defend yourself. Whether in the street, somebody's coming to hit you over the head, or whether it's defending your nation, your community. So we have to realize that not everyone shares our moral values. Again, we were hoping at the end of World War II, hell, we were hoping at the end of World War I with the League of Nations, and that fell apart and didn't work like any work. But the progressive out there, as well as the revolutionary, believes that they can create the new man. That man is going to get better over time. I don't believe so. I don't believe human nature is substantially changing. If generally we have 3 or 4 communities, we can call them countries, that share a certain moral value, great. But you got to realize that isn't the nature of man. That isn't the nature of the world, and we have another guy stuck here. I don't know how to get him unstuck other than tearing out this whole place. I mean, it's fairly easy to move a hitching post, but again, this game is still early access. So we have to realize whether we want to call it evil or just human nature. Maybe there is a certain amount of Darwinism that's necessary in humanity still. I don't know, or humanity always, meaning maybe mobilize units. That's an idea. Okay. Recruits missing. Okay, there we go. Very good idea. Yay, I think that did it. Okay, under position. Hold disband unit, go home. Did that get rid of the guy? Yes. Thank you. Possible the stuck peasants will starve to death. Okay. But good idea. Very good idea. I think he was coming to get this cow. Or bullock, yeah. I know what it is, but yes. Does humanity, is humanity a certain amount of Darwinism in that it's brute force in there? I don't know, but it's part of human nature. War is part of humanity. We can talk about it. So, and like I say, but it's still part war. Big wars, not just wars out in jungles, not just wars in deserts, not just wars in third world countries who aren't as evolved as us, are still going to happen. And I was predicting before this Russian thing happened that eventually, and it still may happen, the climate people will go, oh my God, we've done everything we could to save this climate, but it hasn't worked yet because China, India, or maybe we'll start easy with Africa. They're still chopping down the Congo rainforest, or Brazil, they're chopping down their rainforest and they're polluting the environment. We've got to go to war to stop that, to save the planet. And so we might see the West, for moral reasons, within your moral values, deciding to invade countries and kill eventually millions of people to, and we're going to move our new free family to cut down more. Okay, how much? We got 15. Let me slow this down to normal speed. Moral justification. Okay, we need, now we need logs. Okay, saw pit, stop. I don't want to do any more saw pitting. Moral justification for invading is the climate. Because these third world... Hello, Fox. Wait. What is topic? Collectivism versus individualism. And we're looking, sort of using the middle-aged world to look at this idea here. And so you need to have, so in your ANCAP world, where policemen, I thought I stopped you. I don't want to demolish you. Well, I look forward to more NA. Not quite sure what that means. XMR and Fremont. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm getting you entirely. Who, within the ANCAP world, still realizes that they're, evil people willing to steal things. So, police force, and the police would be motivated to do the job by positive things, meaning, I will give you money if you be policemen, as a job. Okay. And they believe, minimum government, maybe, and it depends on who you're talking and how anarchist, is the, is the ideology of the individual. But, government build road or something like that, or cause road to be built by paying the company, company to, build the roads. So, we'll give our animals a bit of a break. Are we full up here yet? People, nope. I'm going to make dinner now. Well, thank you, Red Neos. Hope to see you again. If you're new around here, remember to subscribe or follow, depending if you're on YouTube or Twitch, or if anybody's watching over on Rumble. I doubt it, but yeah. So because there's threats out there, you need to tax the people enough to have an army, buy the weapons. But you cannot also purely look at things from join army because we pay you. Because there's maybe not enough people out there who are willing to take a job that you have a high chance to die in. Not just that it's uncomfortable that you go camping in the woods, on the weekends or something like that. You've got you might get shot, might get blown up. You might die from it. And some guys are going to do that anyways, because some guys just want to go in the military. That's cool. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, yeah. But that isn't necessarily enough. There isn't enough people out there, maybe, who are going to volunteer for the military. And you can't, because of the way the modern world works, you can't just wait to motivate them like, oh, hey, yes, those people over there are actually going to come and kill you. You better join up. You're going to have to, at peacetime, it could be like Switzerland with a very militia-oriented system, or it could be more like America with more of a professional army. And during peacetime, we don't need to draft everybody, but we may need to draft a bunch of people to give them training and put them into the reserves so that, after 6 months, a year of a, full-time training program, being in a unit, you get transferred over to a reserve unit that you show up 2 weeks a year and 1 weekend every month kind of thing. And that's it. And you're ready to go to some degree if, things start to go bad. Okay, what's Thomas K saying? I think one can't afford to neglect either nature, interest, strength, spiritually, or morals. Any of that. Morals, insofar, both hope for a better world, peace, and ultimate and also for prosperity. Okay, well, you see, and hope is not a good strategy. I am not saying that there should not be a moral aspect to society. Not at all. But what I am saying is, however moral or immoral your society is, and if you have the most moral society on the planet, but some barbarian is going to come and kill you and destroy your society, it don't matter. It just don't matter. Now, does that mean you need to be Stalinistic Soviet Union or Hitler's Germany? No. It isn't, and this is the whole thing, is individualism versus collectivism here. From this whole talk, and we're going to probably be doing more series on more weekends as we continue to play more of the game here. So Saturday mornings, my time out in California, but it started about 2 hours ago. So if you want to set your schedule for that to come in and join for continuing the topic here. We're going to continue for more now, but just more in the future as well. Like I say, however good or moralistic your society is, if it can't survive, it doesn't matter. And for collectivism versus individualism, for me, this whole talk isn't on a binary choice. Absolutely not. It is on where, and I'm still seeking on this. I'm still a seeker. I don't have, I'm not coming here and saying, I have the formula. Listen to me. No, I'm positing the ideas here and trying to look at this. Where are the proper dividing lines between the left, who believes, and you also have right, you can have, monarchist right who believe in a collectivism, a traditionalist, or a fascist, right that believes in collectivism as well. But we're looking at the sort of the American spectrum here. With on the left that believes that having more, having the only vegetable or this carrot or vegetable plot on this property, somehow you have to justify having that, or they get to take 2/3 of your carrot production if you can't justify it, just because you don't have that right to have more than somebody who doesn't have a vegetable plot. So on the one hand, and on the other hand, the sort of anarcho-capitalism, the ANCAP, who believes that the idea of a manor lord, somebody telling other people what to do with the idea of force behind them, including the idea that I will take your house and your farm and everything from you, and either put you in jail or kick you out of the community, and you're SOL. You're done. You have little to no monetary money. You didn't get compensated for it. You just got everything taken from you, but maybe the clothes on your back, and you're gone. So and that is being evil or wrong. On the other hand, it is not a binary choice. Let's see. Hope does help keep people united, but strength does help defend yourselves. Think morals in sports and military motivation. Yeah, absolutely. But hope isn't a strategy. That's the point. Hope isn't the strategy. Yeah, you have hope, but that isn't the strategy. The strategy is how to defend your nation. You don't hope not to be attacked. You plan to be attacked, and then hope you don't need to. I think it was a Polish thing or something I heard, an old saying or something. Get the best sword you can and hope you never need it. I hope this is good. Hey, Jamnuska, how you doing? Well, the game's pretty good. That doesn't take too much hoping. Now we're entering into winter, and we'll see how we do. Okay. Well, we still have some berries to pick. It's shrinking, so we'll let them keep picking through the winter. We have some meat and some berries. We have 3 months of fuel. And we now have some more people have showed up. So we're going to increase wood cutting for fuel. Okay, has this? We haven't yet to get a family there. I think the major problem of today is actually a side effect of prosperity that is convenience or even laziness. No civilization seems to have found a way around this. Yes. Oh, yes. No. And this is a complicated thing. So one thing that, at least in Western society, and most societies around the world, most societies around the world will not allow particularly individuals, at least openly owning slaves. Slavery has to be somewhat covert, somewhat disguised, right? That's one of the that's one place that, in my opinion, a progressive can look at a change in the nature of humanity. From accepting slavery as normal, whether they accepted it as right and proper, or just simply that's the way things are. Like, I accept international violence, meaning wars of one fashion or another, as being not necessarily right or wrong. I don't think of them in those terms. I just think of them as they happen, and we have to deal with it. Whatever the right or wrong of a particular war, that's a different matter. But that the idea that wars happen is just part of nature, human nature at this kind. Women don't want kids, people. Oh, absolutely, Thomas K. There's a lot to talk about here. And this gets into the idea of collectivism versus individualism. And that is sort of where women don't want to have kids. People want to work for less. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So, but I'm trying to keep it on things that people will more easily see the necessity. How do we force women to have children? That could be a huge debate. But we can look at also here conscription. Is conscription slavery? Well, it's enforced labor. Because you can conscript somebody, like in the Middle Ages, to work in somebody's fields, or in a more modern sense to build a road, or like during World War II to build the Atlantic Wall. That was conscription. Is that Nazi labor, for slave labor? Well, in some cases it was very much literally slave labor. Other cases it was, hey, this town near the Atlantic Wall, you're going to provide some people that are going to come and work for a few days or whatever. Is that slavery? It's conscription. And then, of course, there's conscripting your citizenry or other people's citizenry to be soldiers. So this is where, how we're seeing a lot. I'm just noticing like the flickering when we're out here with some of this stuff. Look at the graphics. I am evaluating this game as I'm talking as well. So, right now to this day, Switzerland has conscription, and that all males must join the army. Women can, and it tells you how equal things are. Women can, men must. If men don't, and a friend of mine, I'm not going to name him, I don't know that he'd have a problem being named, but wishes he could have gone into the Swiss army, but due to health reasons, he couldn't. So for the rest of his life, and I don't think is terrible in health reasons, just not fit enough or whatever for the army, for the rest of his life, he's going to have to pay extra taxes. It isn't just like, oh, well, hey, you get a medical deferment, you don't have to go in the army. You get a medical deferment whether you want it or not, and you have to pay extra money for the rest of your life. You got to pay extra taxes for the rest of your life because you did not go into the army. So they have conscription in what might be seem to be a very capitalist, very individualistic society. They still have conscription for the army. So, yeah, so anarcho-capitalism is wrong. It may not be as wrong as the left, in that you have to justify owning more than your neighbor. He has a vegetable plot, he doesn't. Because we are not yet at a society globally, if we're looking at the global society, that's at peace and will remain at peace. The idea of a global planetary libertarian dictatorship would be, I'm now president, I'm going to shut down government, and we're going to have an army and a police force, but the army is just going to come in and attack anybody who tries to take over. And otherwise, everybody's at peace. Just go peace out. Just go live your life. Don't harm anybody. If you do, the police will show up. And if you try to overthrow this government, which is shut down, we're going to use the army to stop you. Otherwise, okay, that's sort of the libertarian dictatorship. I take over somebody takes over the government and then they shut the government down. Yeah, that would be lovely if society could work that way, but that isn't the way society has yet to work in human history. So where is I am not a collectivist. I want personal liberty. But I also acknowledge the need to like have an army and have a navy. And if you're somebody big like the US, because we're a fucking large country, we can mostly do it on volunteers that volunteer for the service. We still, in the United States, you still sign up for selective service, is what they call it, when you turn 18 if you're a male. Again, females don't have to. I wonder why that is. And you go, oh, well, I'm a spindly little girl, I can't do it. Or I'm a fat girl, I can't do it. Okay, you don't maybe do the shooting part, but maybe you do the flying a drone in an office part. It's, just the mere fact that you're a female shouldn't mean you shouldn't have to sign up for the draft. You may not be jumping out of an airplane, but you should still have to sign up for a draft. Any nearby nation will immediately take advantage of such as... Well, I'm saying if it was a global society. Think private security will cover security, and private business will show up and cover all infrastructure. Yeah, exactly. And it depends on how far ANCAP you are. I'm just sort of using them as a straw man to argue against on one side. And yes, I know, and it can go extremely far. It's So I am definitely on the liberty side, but like I say, I acknowledge the needs to have armies, to tax people. A libertarian or whatever will go, taxation is theft. No, it isn't. But I think instead of what the left would do is justify this, because I keep using him. He has a vegetable garden and he doesn't. Justify, and I also deliberately made for this series and talk these big backyards that will have things like vegetable gardens and goats and whatnot, and these small, so that they're smaller, so that it's not equal. Not so the family living here will not be is equal to the family living here. That's part of the thing here. And it comes down to partly, within all of this stuff, rights. This person's rights versus this person's rights. This person's right to this, property here, which, has productivity kind of thing in it. And to sort of within this game is to show how, although this may be collective to a degree, in that I am the Manor Lord and I say, I don't get to in this game say this how, this family will do this job. I just say a family will be doing this job. Which one will it be? It's sort of up to the, the game or whatever. We'll take it over. So, like I say, I don't think taxation is theft. But I will say I think the government needs to justify its taxation. It's in my viewpoint, it's not like, well, the tax rate's the tax rate. And then, okay, well, how much money we're getting? Well, then how can we spend this money? Tax rate, the tax rate is 20%, let's just say. It's 20%. Well, how much money do we have? The government gets to, for education, for defense, for feeding the homeless, for building the new monument, for, what can we spend it on? Yay! Okay, no. I don't think that's the way it should be. I don't think it should be that and I like the Laffer curve, if you know about Art Laffer, and he believes, believes he's shown that the government, if you tax society, whether it's individuals or businesses or whatever, 15%, you will make the most money. Meaning if you go above it, you actually start having diminishing returns. So if you go to 30%, you're actually going to get less money than if you kept it at 15%. Now, so that's really what he believes, because if you keep it low enough, the economy grows and becomes better. Now, at some point, the economy can only grow so much. I mean, it isn't entirely a medieval economy that's like based on land. Again, we can come here and look at Emmer fertility. This, you only have so much of this green land. You don't have no more of it. You only have so much land. And that's still true to this day, but that isn't economies. But economies do, because of the size of population, because of the amount of resources, iron, copper, whatever, can only get so big. Now, he would believe, and I think he's right, but we haven't really tried it all, that if you then start, you get the economies growing as big as you can, if you start taxing it more than 15%, it'll start to shrink. And so you'll actually get less money. So whatever. Now, short term, if you double it, you'll get double the money, just because you forcibly take the money from the people who have it. And then I think now might be the time. Yes. Okay. I like that. And these guys don't. Okay. Yep. We'll shut you down for now. We got 6 months. We'll shut you down. You're already shut down. You should be shut down because we're no longer foraging for berries. Okay. Now everyone build church. And so in the next year, because the economy won't collapse because you've gone from 15 to 30%. Yeah, you will double your income from taxes, but over time, your economy will shrink, and it'll take significant time, if you then lower it back down to 15%, for it to grow back to where it was. Now, if you're trying to not just print money and create inflation, but if you're trying to pay for a war, it's probably better to tax things higher, and we could get into a lot of other reasons for that. Basically, because you're building a tank that you're putting out to get blown up, you're not making a truck that will drive around the country and economically improve things. It's sort of a necessary but it protects your economy, if you will, but it is a non-economic growth endeavor. So, yeah. So there are reasons to, up your taxes at times, but there is sort of the golden mean. But even with the golden mean, if you had a society that was functioning well enough, why not lower it lower than 15%? So this is sort of where, an ideological extremist, like an ANCAP, like a communist, like a fascist, like a feudalist, if you will, I don't just want to say monarchy as somebody at the top, but, an agrarian feudalist type extremist, everything is owned by the Lord, not the Lord God, just the local Manor Lord. And you only have what he allows you to have. Now, maybe you have rights to certain things within the system. Within feudalism, you did have rights that could be taken away if, say, you become an outlaw. You don't behave appropriately. If you behave appropriately, you have your rights. It isn't a totalitarian dictatorship. Feudalism is not. People at various levels whether you're nobles or peasants or villeins. Villeins are not villains, bad people. Villeins are just men or women that don't, have peasantry rights. They're not they're not they're not a serf in the sense that they have, a plot of land and whatnot. They're just sort of day laborers. So yeah, extremist political ideologies are out there, like I say. So I believe in market capitalism, meaning there's got, like I say, I know some people have come and gone, is you have to have competition, both as in multiple berry producers or pickers or whatever, and more than one customer. Can't just be everything is bought by the Lord, so the Lord sets the price and he buys at the same price. Or it can't just be one guy selling berries and he sets the price. Yeah, the price can't be something that people can't afford, but he can set it as high as he wants because there's nobody that's going to set it lower. So as maximum the market will bear, in the sense of not market as in competition, but as in what money or trade goods or whatever these people have. So you need to have a balance. You need to have the idea that, okay, let's see what Thomas says. Maybe one reason why left politics go crazy on taxes and legalization could be that in the 70s they started to get scared of overpopulation and the end of sustainable growth. Okay. So shrinking it down is the way they wanted to still it for some. Okay, I think for some individuals that may be the reason. But I think it's a watermelon. Green on the outside, red on the inside. Hey, Eric. Good to have you here. I think they're using green concerns to justify communism. I think the left, sort of by its nature, they are internationalists. They sort of claim, and I think to some degree it's real, and some degree it's just a construct in their mind, that they care about all the people on the planet. So if not in this community that this guy has a vegetable plot and this guy doesn't, and this guy has a property too small for a vegetable plot, they look way over here and see what these are brigands, but let's call these homeless people over here. Well, these homeless people, we need to take care of them. And by you consuming stuff, iron, whatever, that's been mined, is denying it to these people. So I think the green movement is using greenism to justify its socialism as much as anything else. I think it's like, I don't want to use the word like, I think it's, they looked at America in the 60s and 70s and saw that communism isn't going to work, because especially back then, access to your own home, now whether it's an apartment in New York or a big lot here or a small lot here, but the access to your own home was very reachable. They were never going to get these people to agree to communism because, and it's not wealth inequality. I think, hey, MMDB, I've been rather bad for, the Soviet, yes, they've been terrible for the environment. Up until the French Revolution and other revolts and reforms, the farmers was not free but owned by the lords. No, that's incorrect. Beam slam. The farmers owned the lords, and the lords owned the farmers. And not all of it is feudalism, because I could talk about the Highlands of Scotland. To a complete outsider, it might sort of look feudal, but it isn't. It isn't feudalism, and there are different versions of feudalism. And this peasant here, unlike this game, pause. This game, I just designate fields. Everything is owned by the Manor Lord. Real peasants we get, and we're going to history here now and not just okay, this is good here. Fertility here, I don't know how much this is, in my opinion, I think some of this is just bullshit gamery. But there will be land on top of hills, land on side of hills, land down in the valley, okay? And some of that'll be more rocky than other land. Some of that'll be more fertile than other land. And it won't be fertile because of crop rotation, more or less, of some different areas. But will be, like I say, bottom land versus less soil up on a hill or on top of a hill, and on the side of the hill it's not so steep that it's unfarmable, but it's not very farmable. It's just not very good. So what would happen would be a peasant, not a villain, a villain, and I'm using, which I know best, is the England, okay? And notice I say England here, not other things. There's villains, not bad guys, but the villain. He is a day worker, if you will. He has nothing. He might have a shack, a home, but he has nothing, okay? Where a serf, a peasant serf, now these all may be peasants, but a serf properly would say, oh, he's got the rights too. I mean, it's all sort of owned by the king in that he's the king of the country, and then he gives this lord a subdivision of his land. But then let's just say this peasant here where Arno lives, we can see, this is, I clicked maybe on the wrong one. This is Red Neos 2, where Red Neos 2 lives. This peasant, he has rights to this, let's say this bit of land here that's red, this bit of land over here that's yellow, and this bit of land over here that's green. Because this way, and it's specifically done this way, that they've gone around and they've figured out by looking at the land kind of thing, types of land. Well, you got some bad land, you got some medium land, and you got some good land. And so he has rights that, I don't know if Arno was stuck by the ox. Is this? Yeah, here's Arno over here in this house. So he's guiding an ox, actually. Arno's guiding an ox right now. So it's not just a farm in the sense of a contiguous piece of territory. A lot of that in England nowadays has come about because of the Enclosure Acts that had to go through Parliament, and that's a whole nother story. But he has rights, like I say to this, that the Lord cannot take away without a justification. You know, whether for criminal acts or for not. Oh, and, if this was Red Neos or Arno or whoever, he also has to give a certain amount of labor on the Lord's directly owned land. Or, let's just say over here, this area over here that has green to red, that's all the Lord's direct thing. And the Lord also pays a few people to, full-time work for him, or pays or provides for him, provides a house, provides food and clothing, or however you want to talk about it. But a few full-time farm workers. But to do the planting and do the harvesting and do some of the big stuff, he gets labor from Arno and Red Neos to come over for a certain number of days to work on this. But otherwise, since Arno, I think Red Neos left, since Arno's here, Arnos gets to work his own land. And now he has to pay taxes, or, a percent of the produce from the land to the Lord. And now the Lord has to then normally pay money or whatever to the king. But maybe it would be turned in bushels of wheat or some other sort of payment for him. But yeah, and so it's a rights situation. And this does change, and it sometimes, especially when the Black Death was hitting during the Middle Ages, it happened several different times, the peasants are in charge, not the Lord. The peasants are clearly in charge. The Lord is still sitting in his manor, which we haven't built yet, but it's sort of like what we have here right now, in that I need more people, and so I build houses to attract them. But if I'm not giving these people a good deal, they'll split. Oh, well, but they're supposed to. No, because they'll go to some other lord, and that lord will protect them. They'll abscond, but the demand for people, the demand for workers, was so high. The Lord was, well, what can I give you to work for me and to stay here? The people were in charge. Now, if you get to where you have enough people to work the land, the balance of power goes to the Lord. So it's feudalism is a power-sharing thing, and particularly in English feudalism. And this is why serfdom in Imperial Russia, and it does change over time, but it still existed at the beginning of World War I, is different. And I don't know the system well there. And you may be more right when you're talking about that. And so it's a rights system. And this is very much an Englishman's rights. And you talk about in a Sargon of Akkad, if you listen to his stuff, and he sometimes talks about how an Englishman views his rights. And it's not necessarily an American's idea of freedom, because they more come out of this feudal system. And yeah, it's right for the government to draft me, or it's right for these other laws to happen, but I still have my rights. It's, like I say, it's very much of a power-sharing kind of thing. Now, yeah, as an individual, Baron whoever here, Baron Gamer, we'll just call him Baron Gamer since I'm playing this, Baron Gamer versus Arno, who's going to win? Baron Gamer's going to win. There's no question about that. Because the local justice is, Baron Gamer. And for Arno, even if he sort of has the wherewithal, both mentally and financially and whatever, to go appeal to the king as the king travels around, or Duke so and so, somebody above the Baron but below the king, to go appeal, the system's probably going to go with Baron Gamer, because it's the system. And even if Arno is right in his conflict, yeah, he's probably still going to lose. But Arno, Red Neos, and Sev 82 together, the three of them sharing their push to conflict with Baron over what rights to land, or how many days can you have me work on your land, or whatever the conflict is. We're not conflicting over the rights of existence of the peasantry, over the rights of the existence of the Baron. We're just some sort of conflict here, union negotiations, if you will, if you want to put it in sort of on a more modern term. Oh, well, now this isn't everybody in the community, but these are three significant upstanding citizens that, and especially if this expanded a little bit more, one may be running the tavern and another running the bakery. And, these are, community leading people here. And they've now got a real conflict with Baron Gamer. Well, it's probably in Baron Gamer's best interest to negotiate a settlement and not have this appealed to higher authority, or have this to become some sort of strike, like I'm not going to run the bakery, or I'm not going to. Well, then the Baron is going to have to come in, because everybody is dependent upon the bakery baking bread. This collectivism versus individuality. We can't let the community starve, and there just isn't go to Walmart or go wherever and buy some food, that's shipped in from somewhere else. We have to work together. So if they go on, if the crew goes on strike, and does the Baron look to the rest of the neighbors like he's in the wrong? Or does it look like Arno and crew are asking for too low of taxes, or too big of other land, or whatever this is? And so this really, you got to understand the medieval serfdom, and I'm talking Western Europe, and it does change in different regions, and it's different in France than it is in England and whatnot, and it varies a bit. Different rights, different contracts, social contracts, if you will. And so they own each other. When the society is working right, a peasant can't just pick up and leave, a serf, because he is tied to that land. But that doesn't mean all the peasants are tied to the land. It's the serf that's tied to the land. Now, if he can have two male heirs, only one of them is going to inherit this, we'll call it a farm, even though, like I say, there's a bit over here, a bit here, and a bit over here, and shall we, okay, only one of them will inherit the farm. Only one of them will inherit the rights of owning this cottage and this backyard, this bit of land over here, this bit of land here, and the ownership rights to these things. Only one of the two brothers. The other brother, well, he can hang out and become a villain, meaning somebody who's not contractually required to be here. He just knows the different people, and seasonally he'll cut wood for the woodcutter, and he'll help with the foraging, and he'll help with the milling, and he may be well off, or maybe not well off, but he and he lives in a smaller house, but none of these have indoor plumbing, so you're pooping in a pot, or you're pooping in a an outhouse. It's just and you got rats living in your thatched roof, and whether you have a big one or a small house, you may be providing for you and your family well enough, maybe very well, within the context of this society. Or you could go, well, screw this, I'm going to go for a job in the city. Now, what job are you going to get in the city? Because it's controlled by guilds and other things that are, are as tied up, whether you want to call it contractually, and there's some of them are contracts, literal contracts. Some of them are sort of social ideas. You don't just show up in, whatever, walled city kind of thing and just start doing it. Because if you want to start making shoes, you got to get the shoe guild to approve you. If you're going to start being a merchant, you got to get the merchant guild or whatever equivalent. And that's not just somebody showing up with their vegetables on market day. That's somebody that's buying and trading and selling stuff. So yeah, it's feudalism. If you really understand what it is, it's a system, and it's a system of rights. Baron Gamer here has the right to do this. Okay, he can do this. And these people will show up with their spears and their shields because he says, come out and do this. Now, he also has only so many days a year that he can do this. Okay. That's not encounter. If this was just training, march forward, left face, right face, march around, stabby practice onto a pole, whatever. Not the training days. That was often Sunday, but not the training days. And so not the days like here in town. But if we were coming out here to, and I will get to look at the chat some in a bit, see if there's some things, but I'm just sort of going on. But to go to war against the brigands here, so, and this, supposedly take a few days, so you are no longer working your fields or doing whatever. You're now here, and you have to provide your own food for the number of days. And okay, yeah, no problem. We got in a year, no problem. We'll come out, with the Baron, and we'll come out and thrash these brigands, and then come home. Okay, and then the king needs an army, and okay, so these 16 guys or whatever, they'll show up, and they'll give the king 60 days worth of being fighting. Now this is just one guy from each household. You still have other members of the household, working it out, doing the the farming, the whatever, just not as well or as efficiently. And and then at some point you go, oh hey dude, king, yeah, my group of spearmen, they've been serving too long, and the king, yeah, at some point he can say, tough luck, you gotta stay doing this because we gotta have the army. But that's gonna really, really suck the system down. The king may go, oh hey, yeah, no problem, dudes. I'll give you gold or silver, or probably more likely. Keep fighting with me for another, hanging out for another 10 days. The siege of this castle is almost over. Just, here's money for 10 more days. And that you can, compensate for it. Or because they had to, beyond a certain point, they had to pay them. Certain point, it was free. It was just you owed a certain amount of labor to the work the Lord, Baron Gamer's farmland, and a certain amount of military service. But beyond that, yeah, he could sort of kind of force you to stay if he pays you. I mean, you can sort of tough luck brute force it, but I mean within the contract. Oh yeah, let's just say it's 60 days a year that he can put you out on a military campaign. But unless he's going to start paying you, that we give you enough money so that your family can, still get food, and you'll get food, so you can buy food, because you show up with a few days worth of food, and your son will show up with another backpack full of food at some point. So it's just the idea, and it's all this sort of I'm going to save this. It's again, I don't necessarily mean a John Lockean social contract government. I mean an actual established contract that, however much there is of it written down in an age when writing is not common, because maybe nobody in this town actually can read and write in any effective way, or maybe 2 or 3 people can. But an established, these are the rules, and these are your rights. And yeah, to a point, yes, you'll find examples, real examples, significant ones in history where might makes rights. The king says this, the Lord says this, whatever, but it goes against the tradition. But either because the barbarians in the next valley, or I've been, Baron Gamer has been successful in the last 2 wars, and well, he's kept us successful, and we've been doing okay. Yeah, because he says it, we'll just keep going it. Or just a certain amount of tyranny is like, oh shit, if I don't do this, he will take away my farm, and it's not bad enough that somebody else is going to risk losing their farm. So the balance is like, well, yeah, I'll stick with it past the contractual norms, but this is all again within a certain balancing idea. So yeah, let's see what the chat's been saying. Okay, so it's how awful Black Death was. It was kind of good for the peasantry, as lack of worse increased wages and eased a lot of hold of the nobility. Yes, I mean, for those that survived, other than losing loved ones, yes, it actually did sort of help out. I thought, okay, Beamson thought it was the opposite. True, there were free farmers and owned farmers. Okay, now, and again, this may be very different in the East. There were, and things change over time, okay? And the Celtic system was different. It had a different basis of legitimacy. The Anglo-Saxon system, and I can't necessarily enumerate the details of the differences, but I know it. But the Anglo-Saxon land-holding nobility to the king, up to the king, is different than the later Norman, which I probably know the best. Normans in England, Norman feudalism. So what is there with Harold and whatnot before? Harold Godwinson is the one who defeats Harold Hardrada, the Dane. Whether he was, I think maybe more from Norway, but they called all. And I don't know if Eric and Toy Jet are still around. In America, in the past, let me pause this. Even though I saved it, where's my cursor? There's my cursor. And for a while, of course, Norway was owned by Sweden, so we called all those people Swedes. In England, you call all those people Danes. That was just the generic term for Scandinavians, whether they were coming as a Viking or whether they were, establishing Dublin, as a town and being there as commercial and other sorts of you know, businesses and residents, whatever their terms there. The English called them Danes. He wins against Harold Hardrada and then comes down and loses, gets shot, arrow in the eye, against William the Conqueror. Well, William the Conqueror brings what is in essence called, Norman feudalism, which is different than the Anglo-Saxon with the fjords. Not, I think that's how you pronounce it. Was sort of the call up of the militia, but under Norman feudalism, you have a baron like this, but you can also have a knight who would be under the baron normally. Might be under the king too. I mean, it can vary. But it would be like him. Well, let's just say all of this map here that we're seeing is firmly the baron's land at the moment. The knight may get control of one of these spots. Though normally the way this goes, that would be bigger. It would normally be a smaller. And so then he mostly, I think, has to pay service, meaning when the baron needs him, he shows up with a horse and armor, a lance, and all that stuff, plus a few other, fighting soldiers. And so, but he has the land and the people living on it to produce enough resources, whether it's hunting animals or grazing animals or farming or if they have a clay deposit and on their land they make pots, whatever. He does enough services to be able to provide the military capability that he has. And then, yes, there are also, for various reasons, and whether for somebody's lifetime or generationally, will be granted a freehold. That is maybe sort of what you're talking about when you're saying free farmers, and a freehold, and there might still be a certain amount of taxes to it. It's not, at least as my understanding, something that, I can then sell, if I'm the freeholder over here, have my own sort of, and it would normally be a contiguous bit of farming. It would maybe be something, it would normally, I would say, be something big enough that it's more than one person could farm. Because the whole idea of the set up farms, we're talking about when we're talking about, I want to demonstrate fertility, with the bit of land over here, the bit of land over here, and a bit of land over here. This was the idea that these 3 bits of land would be enough for one farmer or one farming family to do on his own. I'm not saying it at harvest time or planting, when it's sort of at peak season, that you don't get some either traded help with, I'll help you with yours, you help me with mine, or give a villain a few coins, or give a villain some food, some of the produce from the farm or something, pay somebody to help you out a bit. I'm not saying that it's purely a one-man show, but it's sort of the idea that one man, one sort of, nuclear family can operate, where the freehold may be this big, not a huge plot of land, but something that he has more, and he's paying for his the labor that he needs on his land. Now, he's still small enough of a guy that he's not a non-farmer, meaning just a land owner. He is a freehold, and now he's not necessarily paying money. He may be, again, paying, in goods. A lot of this is barter system. And so the freehold will exist, but it's not necessarily something that he could sell. That he had, that it's, completely free himself, that, hey, Yeah, I'm getting old. I don't want to do this anymore. Screw my children. They can look out for themselves. They can go get a job. Those lazy bastards. I'm going to sell my freehold and go take a trip to the Holy Lands for my soul or something. What would be important to them in those days, and sell up and take that money and have a holy trip to the as you're a bit older and you're a bit creaky, but have a well-paid trip to the Holy Land. You don't quite, in my understanding of under Norman system, that you can quite just sell that out without good reason. And so it's, again, we're looking at collectivism versus individualism. All of this is owned by the king, almost. But yes, but no. Because there's also the church. Got to remember the church. Can't forget the church. But all this is owned by the king. The king is just granting to him property rights, which are in essence use rights. And he's granting property rights, use rights to somebody else but they have the rights. It's rights. But think of it sort of like in America, and I will get to some more of the yes, manorless and maidenless right now. It's sort of like an HOA, a homeowners association in America or something. You can't paint your property the wrong color. You can only paint it approved colors. Where not, I rent an apartment, but here there is an HOA here that the owner of the apartment was having trouble because he wanted to pay for his own people to come, contract to trim the trees. Oh no, you have to use this one contractor for the HOA area. You can't do that. And he was fighting with them and whatnot. And so, well, but these are trees on my property. No, you must use, even though they're on your property, you must use this company to trim your trees, because the homeowners association, which includes some apartment complexes, you must do it this way. So it's not an unlimited or unrestricted rights even for the freehold, but it is a certain amount of freedom, and it may be because of, again, it's often granted or maybe bought, because maybe somebody has been successful enough and they want to do it, but they buy the rights for that. So that can be, and it does get sort of muddled when you're looking at all the difference. Okay, so let's see. The peasants' rights depended on the area you mentioned, but also on the time. Oh, yes, absolutely. It does change over time. It does, absolutely. In the early Middle Ages, the peasants tended to have more rights and freedom, and later the barons was, in effect, owning the peasants living on his land. Well, from the English example, I would say no. That's not how I would say. I would categorize it. I would go early on, and if we're looking at the Norman situation, early on, you have near tyranny. You have Norman domination. The Normans are changing, what was the, Lord Vader to Lando Calrissian, when Lando or whatever is saying, that's not our agreement, and he's saying, I'm changing our agreement and hope I don't change it anymore. Well, the Normans are coming in with brutal force, and if you revolt, we're going to kill everybody. And they do that a few times. I mean, they literally come in, and this scenario of no establishment things, did in essence happen a few times in Norman England, because a generation or two before, this area might have revolted and they literally came and killed everybody, women, children, everybody. And now, after some time, some guy has, some baron has gotten permission to come into the area and recruit people who, can come and do it, that aren't necessarily, because, hey, if you're stealing somebody else's peasants by them, by just holding out, not stealing them like you're running up and grabbing them and taking them away, but you're stealing them in the sense that you're offering them a better deal or something, that would upset the system. So you're getting people that other people are allowing to go, excess workers, excess people, and set up. Yeah, this kind of thing would happen in a few cases to dealing with this. So the early Norman is pretty damn dictatorial. And then later on, when the Black Death does hit, there ain't enough peasants. Whole towns, and this scenario here again will happen post Black Death, and because a few towns were completely wiped out, and somewhere I think to like 100%, others to 60, 70%, but there weren't enough people. Again, collective need, the idea that you cannot truly survive on your own. You need a certain collective around you. And so if there ain't enough of you here, and there ain't enough of you here, and there ain't enough of you here, and there ain't enough of you here, but this is good land, all these people move to here and maintain this village, this system, and these just go back to being sort of, unmanaged. Whether they become overgrown in forests or not is another question. I was going to say become unmanaged, unfarmed, unwhatever, and this community survives, and in a generation or two or whatever, they would be re-expanding back out into territories that had, had gone empty. So you have that. And then post that, you get a bit more formalized as society is developing, become a bit more rigid. But then again, as society is developing, you're moving into a much later age in England, moving, into the 17th century, and where the basically you're fighting to maintain the hold of your rights to lands, and it's slipping away in the sense that I'm trying to think of the good way to put it. Well, eventually it's going to the idea of the Enclosure Acts is sort of the final things. And the Enclosure Acts, because what you would also have here, and this is sort of where it comes, is let's say this space here would be, but often it was also some space over here and some space over here, that would be common grazing ground. And this house would have the right to put one cow. This house would have the right to have 2 cows. This house would have the right to have 2 cows. This house would have the right of 1 cow, or whatever it was, and that these cows get to wander around the various common lands. Well, the Enclosure Acts are part of it. Is what they're doing is with the you have the ownership rights of this house. Now, you may be paying not so much taxes to the government, but you're paying taxes to the government, being the local landlord. That's where you get it. You're paying rents. You're not paying like property tax. You're paying rent taxes for this house. You've lost the right to have a cow on the common lands, and what is also happening with this, and this is again what I'm saying is I know England best, is instead of again bit of good land, bit of bad land, a bit of okay land, it's just like this is your farm now with the enclosure acts. Now, it may be the same size of land, and it may even have a mix of land types here. Or it may be you got just shafted and you're in the sucky land, so this is sucky, so you're gonna raise sheep. Because this ain't gonna grow enough wheat. But it'll do sheep. And this land will still do, So you gotta look at this as a spectrum through that. And so as the Middle Ages are going on and becoming the Renaissance, you still have, because peasantry, serfdom, I should say, is, I think it still exists out in the Channel Islands in Britain. There's still like one of the islands that they still do, and maybe it's officially gone now. I think in like 2010 or something, or somewhere around there, it officially went. But there was still the idea of that the people were still serfs, and they still had these various plots of land and whatnot. So it sort of fades. Those that sort of win the lottery and end up, if you will, for various reasons, end up with good chunks of land. Now, of course, when the enclosure is all this big area becomes directly owned by the landlord, and he's eventually paying government taxes. Well, he's always sort of been paying government taxes, but on all of it before. Now it's just sort of this, and this is all sort of directly owned by him, and this farm is owned by somebody else. So it's sort of giving property rights to these places, but some of these places are going to end up with no big land property rights. Maybe they have ownership of the pottery kiln, and they make pots locally or whatever, so their name is now Potter, last name, and then that's where that kind of stuff happens. So it does slide on a spectrum, and as you can tell, I sort of kind of know about this, but I don't have all the details not locked down on every little bit. Yeah. So it varies, and I would say it's always a power game, and it varies different regions, not just. And I mean by that I mean in different parts of Europe. So I guess that's about where I think we'll end this today. It's been going about 3 hours. My throat's about ready to give out. And we'll be back next week looking more at Manor Lords, and seeing how this goes. We'll hopefully get expanding more and more. Check out fishing and other things, and do some military, fight the bandits and whatnot, clear them out. And try to look at and examine as part of this. And I'm definitely on the sort of individual and freedom side, but it has to. It can't be, and this is where and I love you guys' inputs. It can't be to the extent that it is destructive to society. And how best to handle that balance. How best to give people a reasonable amount of freedom, but without damaging society. And that's sort of where I'm myself trying to figure out. And so you can tell I'm not of the left, and that everything is collective. So the people own the means of production. No. But you don't survive entirely on your own. Okay, I want to thank Beamslam, Jemnuska, Arno, of course, Sev82, MMDB, Eric, Thomas K. Did I say Jemnuska? If I didn't, Yeah. Oh, what? Oh, yeah. Red Neos. I know he left, but thank you for hanging out and giving your input. And Steel Yoda, if you're still around, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow with some War Thunder. Sometimes we get into interesting topics. Oh, Toy Jet, yes. Thanks, Toy Jet and Eric, if I didn't say. And yeah, so War Thunder tomorrow and probably next weekend back with more. There may be a weekend or two coming up that I'm going to be busy, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen. But we'll be back with more Manor Lords. I do want to take more continuing look at all of this. So, and we'll talk more about society. Yes, Happy New Year to everyone, as Sev is saying, if we don't see each other before then. So thanks, everybody.